at age 78. Okay, tell the children to leave the room. They're back. Prue MacSween, Senator Holly Hughes and Graham Richardson. Welcome, team.
Thanks, Smithy.
Welcome, welcome.
It's astounding that old bloke Edelstein didn't die earlier with all those young chicks.
Well, Bryn Gordon came out today to say there wasn't much sex going on anyway.
No, I couldn't imagine he would be in that department.
But he was a doctor. He could write... Oh, no, he couldn't. He couldn't write a script for that, no. Scott Morrison is really taking the lead at the G7 on all things COVID, including giving the WHO the same powers as weapons inspectors in future. Richo, he wants the WHO to have those weapons inspector powers, and he wants another investigation, as do the WHO, into the origins of COVID. Is it still appropriate that we take the lead on this at a forum like the G7?
Well, I think he's so far out in front, he's got no choice. But whether he should have done that in the first place is the question. I mean, look, you know, the Chinese are a big, bad, bullying nation, but they're also very necessary to Australia. Without their trade, we'd be in all sorts of strife. And so it is a path upon which we have to tread very, very lightly. If you don't, and you alienate them, they can cut you off in a flash, as of course some of our agricultural industries have already discovered. So we've got to be very careful, and I'd suggest a little more careful than we've been.
That kind of diplomacy, Prue, is not going to have the Beijing CCP very happy at all. So we could see more reprisals, we could see more intimidation. The WHO want to go back in. Should Scott Morrison have left it at that, or is his grandstanding on this now taking us into more dangerous territory?
Well, it's a high risk, but at the same time, we need solidarity. We need the rest of the world to back him and to be united in this, because we're all suffering as a consequence of what happened over there. And I think that if we let them continue to bully us, to dictate the terms of engagement, that they win. So it is a dangerous, risky game. It's sad that we weren't, and the rest of the world weren't onto them and awake a lot earlier. We're all so vulnerable now, and it's our own fault.
Yeah, I wonder whether the action of China in our own waters, Holly, is in expectation of what may have happened at the G7, because what we're hearing from Taiwan, and it was confirmed a couple of weeks ago by, I think it was Major General Adam Finlay, that all of a sudden we've got all of these armed militia ships, Chinese militia ships, fishing boats, encroaching on Australian waters. Taiwan is saying it's all about intimidation. It doesn't look good.
No, and I think that's why when Prime Minister Morrison was over at the G7 and met with President Biden, but also met with Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and there's been people out there crying that the one-on-one with Biden didn't happen. But in fact, a 20-minute meeting became a 45-minute meeting with the three of them together in acknowledgement of the challenges we face in that Indo-Pacific region. And it is not just about Australia's position here. It is about the world coming together and making sure that our allies and our friends are very much behind us and supporting us, because China is flexing its muscle. And I know we were talking last week with regards to the submarines and making sure that we have all of those defence mechanisms in place, because this is scary and could get very real very quickly. Yeah,
Richo, how would you have reacted sitting in Cabinet when you were sitting in Cabinet and all of a sudden you've got Major General Adam Finlay or his equivalent back in your time saying, oh yeah, now we've got armed fishing vessels, a whole heap of them, we're hearing now in our northern waters. How would you have reacted?
Well, you'd have to get over the shock first, because the idea of armed fishing vessels is pretty rare, pretty bizarre. So I think I'd have been shocked to hear that. But look, you know, you do in a cabinet, you do what you have to do. You just sit there and you say, OK, that is the problem. Wish we didn't have it, but what are we going to do about it? And you'd sort something out. And that's that's what this cabinet will do. You've got to say Morrison has been a good Prime Minister in the sense of he's a believer in cabinet. He's not like Rudd was when he wanted a gang of 4. He understands that if you get your top 15 together, it's better than your top 4. You've got many more brains applied, and that's what you need. You need to try and milk every resource you've got if you're going to try and match a nation that is obviously armed to the teeth and angry. Now, what the Chinese are angry about, I'm never quite sure, but they're angry.
Yeah, yeah. And in the next 3 days, I think it is, they've got this major anniversary of a famous historic event, and they're showing up all the new military in Tiananmen Square, once again, as they normally do, and it couldn't come at a better time for them.
Exactly. You know, it's interesting. We've had a colour theme here with that grey zone, the little blue men in the boats. It's black and white that has been for a long time, that Australia and the rest of the world has been absolutely blind to what this threat is.
Yep.
And it's now we're trying to play catch up. Consecutive governments have been remiss with our strategic and defence, and I just really worry about it because, you know, we've got submarines coming, in 10 years? It's bloody ridiculous. You know, we're going to have these little blue men coming in, sailing into the harbour, and we'll be looking there, what the hell are we going to do?
Yeah.
Well, that said, Prue, our Collins classes are absolutely a fantastic boat.
What have we got, 6 of them?
No, but they're going through the cycle and they're fantastic. And the guys that serve on those, the guys and the girls that serve on them should be commended at every opportunity.
All right, I want to move on to the Queen. The Queen will no longer follow a never complain, never explain policy, Holly. The palace is going to challenge mistruths from now on. Obviously, they're going to call the policy Meghan Harry policy or whatever. And it was due to what they said in that Oprah interview. And I'm glad the Queen's doing this.
Oh, absolutely. And I think a lot of people are going to say it's past time because the behaviour that we've seen Meghan and Harry go on with has been really appalling. And the airing of dirty laundry, which, as we keep hearing, is not perhaps the true version of what actually took place at the time. And if you look at the way the royal families conducted themselves, from the Queen through to Kate and Will, and the way they've all behaved and sort of smiled and nodded, trying to keep the family together. Kate's been the peacemaker where she could be. No, it's about time they got called out. And when they start making up stories of their own version of the truth to suit their narrative, absolutely, it's about time the Queen came out.
Richo, you knew long ago you always had to give some kind of a explanation to things because a no comment is very guilty looking, isn't it?
It always is. If you're saying no comment in a crisis, it means that you did it. That's usually the...
Is that speaking from experience?
Heaven perish the thought, no. But that's what it means. So you've got to be a bit very careful with your language. And, of course, there is no group in the world more careful with their language than the royal family.
Yeah, very true. Now, I want to talk about garbage with you. Rubbish.
Oh, OK.
Yeah. Residents on the northern beaches of Sydney have won a major victory against 4 a.m. garbage runs. No more, says the council. I don't know how this is going to work. Like, practically, they've got to battle traffic now. That's why they do it at 4 o'clock, and they've done it at 4 o'clock historically in this country for many, many decades.
Well, we remember. Well, I don't remember because I was too young. I'm too young, but you might remember the dust man coming down, emptying the dunnies.
Yes, down the lane.
Night. Yeah. But look, the thing is, why do these mongrels? There is nothing more irritating than having bloody garbage trucks waking you up
at 4 a.m. Clang.
Just gives you the irrits.
Yep.
So why can't they come between 10 and 2? If they're worried about the bloody peak hour traffic, come at an hour when we're all out doing our work. I mean, it just makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's all the convenience of the supplier. Well, they get a service supplier who can do it at the time which is most logical, and we can all sleep in.
Yeah, we can all sleep in. Oh, hang on, I see you on
getting very soft these days, very soft. Toughen up.
We should cop the 4 a.m. garbage run, you reckon, Richo?
Absolutely.
Well, you need to get up 10 times a night, Richo, but most of us don't.
Well, this is true, but I do believe in the tough, resilient Australian youth like myself. We have to get out there and fight to make sure that this country stays tough. And I'm sorry, if we listen to people like you, we're just going to be too soft.
It starts with the garbage run.
You need good sleep.
Yes, Prue MacSween, Richo, Holly Hughes, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thanks,
Good to have you here. All right, coming up, a familiar